What's up, folks? If this is your first time here, my name is Goran and you're watching Reef Under the Roof YouTube channel. This is the part 2 of me visiting Justin from Reef Nation. If you haven't checked out the first part, I'll make sure to link in the description down below. Since Justin has a lot of Acroporas, drop it down below which ones are your favorite. I'm gonna make sure to drop down below 3 of my favorites. And by the way, if you enjoy reefing videos, make sure to like the video, subscribe of course. With all that out of the way, let's go check out Justin's corals.
Our quarantine, which is probably about 150 gallons, it's got a 90 and then a couple 20s kind of plumbed into it. This used to when we would, bring in imported stuff, and haven't had to do a lot of that lately, but because we kind of got a good mix of things and everything's growing, so we'll bring a few frags in here and there, but it's mainly become an overflow and kind of a secondary grow out. And with everybody talking about the antibiotics lately and stuff.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever tried them?
Yeah, we definitely have. I'll keep everything on trays, so if we ever want, we can dip things. I've done it in the quarantine just to kind of play around with things. It's made a difference. For us, a couple harder to grow corals, which has always been the silly WD and the home wrecker.
Which one have you tried?
So in here, we've dipped this with Cipro and with oxalic acid. That's become our go-to, right? We can do it 8 hours. Not cheap, but a little can treat a bin. The way I think about it is, corals, just like other living animal, have an immune system, and just like how humans use antibiotics, right? It's not to wipe out every bacteria that you have in there. That would obviously be a bad thing. But if you can give a coral that's maybe, a 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 on the health scale, a little bit of a reprieve from maybe the bad bacteria that's, hitting it hard, when you put it back in the tank, allow the good bacteria to be able to, or its immune system to rebound a little bit. I think that's maybe more, at leleast the analogy that goes through my brain. I have no idea if it's correct or not, but I think there's something like that, because visually that's what I've seen in some of those corals. Like if you bring something in and it doesn't look hot, we'll just do an 8-hour dip. Everything's temperature controlled in here, so it's gonna go down. I don't need to put a heater. I can just literally put a bin of water with a little power head and just leave it for most of the day, and then pop it back in there. And I would say, if it's not looking happy on its inbound, I would say 7-8 times out of 10 it can rebound. Now that's going to still take, it's not overnight, right? It's like the next 6, 8, 10 weeks, and generally when I put it back in, I'll put it in a little bit lower light or hide it behind one of those rocks a little bit, and then slowly move it out. And probably 15, 20 times I've done that, and it's been good.
A couple people talking about when they're bringing all these Malaysian speciosas, when they try to set up the system just for Malaysian corals, they tend to do better instead of when they're mixing them with everything else.
Yeah, there's so much that we still have to learn at the microscopic level, right?
Whether it's experience with Colorado anemones.
Oh, I was gonna say same thing. Yeah,
cannot mix.
Yeah,
they've been in the hobby for such a long time. When you bring anything wild, they're gone.
And people talk about doing Cipro to kind of like bring those back down to a level set, which tells you that something bacterially is the reason, right? And that's why we like to do dips. I mean, that, and obviously, just like we had the disclaimer for the sodium hydroxide, right? Like I would say almost an even bigger disclaimer with the whole, bacteria resistance and all of that, right? Like I know that's going on everywhere else in our lives, right? With people taking medicine and treatment plans and all of that stuff, right? But there's also no reason that we need to make it worse, right? So that's why so far we've gotten plenty of good results just doing dips in bins and addressing things that way. And then again, I really think that no water change has helped us at least keep the health of things, that and the trace elements and all, probably a little bit of everything has really helped keep the immune system of the corals that we keep fairly high. Yeah, I mean, the more you can give them the environment that they can thrive in, a thriving coral is going to be a healthy coral, and a healthy coral can fight off bad bacteria by itself. It doesn't need our help. It doesn't need antibiotics. Wait to see what Eli has to say in the next few years with all of his aquabiomic stuff, right? That as that database grows, and we do those tests a couple times a year, it's cool to see. I mean, even a tank that doesn't have water changes and we're doing relatively the same things on, we do them 6 months apart, and it's not the same twice. You can see the same corals in your tank, but what you can't see is in flux. It's changing, it's always evolving. And maybe we'll learn that it starts to skew towards certain bacteria over time, or there's things we're doing that we don't even know we're doing that are making that bacteria community shift from one way or the other. Like, we don't know yet, but at least we have we're starting to have some tools to get data on that, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like, again, back to, you know, like the whole giving the coral's own immune system a chance to do it, right? Like, and I think of like humans, right? Like, I mean, why not look for other ways that we can take a halfway healthy coral probiotically and make that a really healthy coral, right? Like maybe reinforcing, you know, kind of like we do with carbon dosing, right? Like everybody used to just dump vodka, and then they were like, well, maybe it should be a mix of vodka and vinegar and sugar, right? Or whatever, right? And then who knows what the MP lactobalance has in it, right? It's probably some other carbon chains, right?
Right. I don't know, but yeah.
But those carbon chains, again, different bacteria feed off of different carbon sources. So like maybe there's good bacteria that we'll identify that are within corals, and maybe a certain carbon source fuels those good bacteria and not the bad ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we're not randomly like, you know, hitting with a hammer our bacterial communities with Cipro or oxalic acid, you know.
I mean, at this point, we're just talking things we kind of think we know, but we still not.
Oh, it's amazing what we
yet.
don't know. It's gonna. I mean, think about how.
Just guessing, but yeah.
I've had saltwater tanks since I was like 13, but I really got into corals in like '98 when I lived in Wrigleyville, and I mean, I think back now of like all the dumb stuff we used to waste our time trying to figure out, like lighting and, you know, stuff that nowadays we have fairly dialed in. You know, pretty much any light you're going to put over a coral, if you leave it for a while, that coral will fairly be happy and grow under that lighting, assuming your water is good and all those other things. But yeah, like now we're into the minutia, and I don't know, that's what keeps me energized about the hobby.
What's going on? What's going on? Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm about to do a video. Get out of here, Rita.